الآن تبدأ ورشة عمل بعنوان تغيرات مجال التسويق خلال 50 عاماً. يدير الورشة فيليب كوتلر. نتمنى لكم وقتاً مؤثراً. Now we are starting our workshop titled How Marketing Has Evolved Over the Last 50 Years. Workshop presents Philip Kotler. We hope you have profoundly impactful time.
This is a very special time for me, and I hope for you. I've been teaching marketing for 50 years. I am also learning all the time because marketing keeps changing, not in its basic purpose, which is to help customers and improve their lives. But the fact is that new technologies emerge, which must be added to your marketing skill set. For example, I believe that AI, artificial intelligence, will do a complete change of a lot of marketing. And it means that marketing may be done with fewer people, but with the same impact or even a stronger impact. But let's not jump ahead. Let's see where it started, what marketing does, what its aim is, and so on. I sometimes say there are 3 P's to marketing. I know you know about the 4 P's: product, price, place, and promotion. I sometimes talk also about 3 P's, that marketing is about people, purpose, and planet. People, purpose, and planet. And when I say people, I advocate very strongly the idea of H2H marketing, human to human marketing. Okay? It's not that we want to create goods to be bought and sold by just a informal, mindless transaction. I mean, do you want all of your buying of things or selling of things to be just transactional? Or do you want it to be infused with immersion and pleasure? And so H2H means it should be human beings talking with each other and helping each other. H2H marketing, human to human. Now, I'd like to start with the slides because that will help organize my presentation. So let's see if the people running the program can show you the slides. That's the first slide, and I just list a couple of books that recently were published, and I won't say any more about that. But let's go to the second slide. Marketing was very simple in the beginning. It was 4 P's. You come out with a product that has some attributes and some differentiation from other products. You have to put a price on it, which won't stay as the price. It will change over time, but you must price it. Then you must say, where is it found to be bought? We call that place. Where can you get it? Maybe you can get it from a vending machine. By the way, if you're in Japan, it's an amazing number of things you can buy from a vending machine rather than from a store. And finally, you're going to promote the product and its specialness. You probably won't say much about any negatives at all. You'll talk about the positives of that product. Okay, that was marketing in the beginning. Please, the next slide. And that slide suggests the kinds of things that come up when you do your marketing. Now, let's go to the next slide. Those 4 P's, product, price, place, and promotion, were were called the marketing mix. Now that's a very important concept. What are the tools that you can use to market your product? Product, price, place, and promotion. But now I've expanded it to 7 tools. Unfortunately, they're not all beginning with a P, but all of them must be looked at in the planning process when you develop a marketing plan. For example, besides product itself, I've got to add service. Now, in the past, everyone thought product meant the product and the service. They didn't separate the service. I don't want to separate service. I want to make sure it's independently discussed, because there's a product could go with no service, a great deal of service, different kinds of service. So let's make a separate element in the new marketing mix, the word service. In fact, we're increasingly a service society, so we have to be not just engaged in product definition, but service definition. What's our promise of service to the customer? And then I would add the word brand. Brand is so important. If you have been a successful company, it's partly because you've built a brand over time. It's never instantaneous, that people have great respect for, and it makes it easy for them to choose which product to buy. So, all right, look what we did. We said the marketing mix nowadays has 7 components. So it's product, service, and brand, all of which have to be planned in the discourse. But what about price? That's important. But let's add to that the word incentive, because price doesn't stay the same. You may have a fixed price, but the product isn't selling. So you add an incentive. Buy today, and we give you 2 for the price of 1. Or there's so many types of ways to promote earlier purchase, and we use the word incentive for that. And then we say, instead of using the word promotion, which could mean so many things, you have to have in your marketing mix 2 very important systems. One is called your communication system. Yes, it is a promotionally oriented system, but it's your communication system. And the other one is your distribution system. Actually, you're going to make a promise about meeting a need the customer has, and you're going to use your distribution system to get the product over to the customer to meet his or her needs. Okay. That's the 7 concept of marketing mix. By the way, back at Harvard in an earlier time, Neil Borden, a professor, said there's 12 elements to the marketing mix. And fortunately, we collapsed a lot of them into the 4 Ps, and now we're back again with more, like 7. Okay, let's move on to the next story. Now, I published a book called Marketing Management in 1967, and I knew it was going to be either a great success or a great failure. The reason I said it might fail is because it was more sophisticated than the other books. What do I mean by that? First of all, it had some mathematics in it. Secondly, it had some findings reported in the marketing literature, real studies, not just news, but real studies that found out what really makes a salesman great, what makes an ad great. I mean, everyone will have opinions, but there's more than opinion. Did you study 20 salesmen who were different in their abilities and find out what made a great salesperson? So the book offered new findings. It also used what we call organization theory. How do organizations make decisions? From the leadership at the top, down to the middle management, and down to the working group. And it dealt with also what we call social psychology. We immediately say in economics that the theory that consumers are rational, that they make a mental comparison of all the brands that are competing, and they have all the facts in their mind and then they process it and choose the best product. No, do you know so much of purchasing is emotional? Just look at people going into a grocery store. Why do you think the grocery store has the candy at the checkout counter? Is it that the person planned to get a Snickers bar and you wanted to make it convenient for them to find it as they are checking out? No, you probably did not intend to buy a Snickers bar, but you saw it on the checkout. So much buying has a large emotional element that we didn't have in our books. So my book ended up, to my happiness, to be an advance in the thinking. And what that meant is that those professors who were teaching marketing turned to my book because they thought it made them feel more important. Because marketing people sometimes are thought of as in a soft subject, common sense. Marketing is common sense. It's not like finance. Finance, you go to the business school and you learn formulas and things like that do work. So what my book did is made marketing more scientific. And now there were principles that were proven by studies and experiments. And so it quickly got adopted as the major book in the United States because it made marketers look better to the public. Okay. And then my edition went abroad, especially Canada and Germany and India and so on. So the book went around the world. And I've been lucky because every 3 years I revise it and I add the latest. I add AI if AI is operating and so on. And so now we're in the 16th edition of Marketing Management. And I did the same with a book that is less managerial oriented. It's more called The Principles of Marketing. And it's in the 20th edition. It's for the colleges where many people want to learn the principles of marketing, but they don't plan to be in the marketing field. Marketing management is when you plan to be in the decision-making marketing. And then I wrote another one called Marketing and Introduction for just smaller colleges and people who wanted a shorter reading on marketing. Okay, let's move on. So there's a lot of concepts in the field, and most of you know them. The main thing is that we're trying to reach customers who could be interested in our product. Basically, we've defined a need, and we're finding leads on customers who would pay for a solution to their problem. And then we developed, even before we developed the 4 Ps, you should start with the 4 As. What do I mean by that? A person is not going to buy from you if they are unaware of the product, if they know it can't be found anywhere where they live, it's not accessible, and if they can't afford it, they won't buy it, and so on. So we have the 4 As. You can see the list. So that's the beginning point. Don't look for any customers who have not been made aware of your product and have the money to buy it, and they have the means to drive to buy it and all that. Okay, now we do the 4 Ps, which is the planning process. That's the marketing mix. And then we move on, and we come to a concept called the 4 Cs, because we're always a company competing with other companies, but using collaborators to help us. In other words, our employees are not enough. They're helping us, our employees, in a hotel, let's say. All the employees help, but you may want to collaborate with other groups that might advertise your hotel. You'll hire them to prepare advertising. And there's all kinds of collaborators who you're going to put together to help you sell more of your product. And so those are the C's. Now we move to the concept of STP. Markets are very big. Coca-Cola, yes, makes the market everyone should drink Coca-Cola. So they don't even have to do what we call segmentation. Well, that's not true. Even Coke wants to know, do we have a plan to get more teenagers to drink more Coke? Now that's a segment. Or can we get people over 60 to drink Coke more regularly? You see, so even though they're mass marketing, they are also segment marketing too. You're going to have a plan for each segment that might be big. So we can divide the market into groups. We can target the groups that are best to reach and serve, and that's called targeting. And then we have to tell our story. What is it that we do well? What's our positioning? Are we the cheapest product? That's good. Often the lowest price product is the big seller. Or are we going to be the highest price seller, like Starbucks, where coffee is expensive but very good, and there's so many kinds of coffee. So the idea is positioning is very important. And we'll move on because I believe you know most of this. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things I did in the field was I said, is it companies only that marketing is about, buyers and sellers? Or is everyone in marketing in some way? So here's what I noticed, that watch a college. A college is not going to be successful unless it can attract enough of the students it wants. And to attract them, it has to advertise the college, create narratives that are interesting about life on the campus and special people and professors and all that. So they must be busy doing marketing too. And they have competition because if it's Stanford has Harvard as a competitor. Northwestern has Cornell as a competitor. So, okay, colleges do marketing too. Churches. Yes, church can't be empty. You don't want to have a huge building empty and no one coming anymore on Sunday services or Saturday services or so on. Yeah, churches, by the way, religions differ and they compete with each other. How many times have you heard that someone from one religion or no religion switched to a different religion? The famous poet T.S. Eliot was a Protestant, and then he decided that Catholicism had ideas in it that were better suited to him, so he became a Catholic. Okay, all right, so when I introduced the concept, let's broaden marketing to every company and individual. I had a lot of opposition. They said that will diminish the usefulness of marketing because where's the real market? And companies really are into a market of buyers and sellers and prices and so on, where would you say a university is in the market in that sense? So today, this problem still continues. Half the people don't want marketing to be broadened because they think it dilutes marketing. And then every time I meet a nonprofit organization, they're busy marketing. So you have to make up your own mind. Next slide, please. Technology is changing. Look what happened. We went from print advertising, which was really, putting an ad in a magazine or in the newspaper. That was the big thing. And then, of course, along comes radio. Oh, good. So they can hear our message, not just read our message. And then television comes along. Oh, they can see our message as well. And that made a huge difference and built up great success stories. And then the computer came. Not just the computer, because the computer had the potential of releasing something called the internet. And the internet meant that we could have social media. I could join Facebook and meet a lot of friends on Facebook and hear their opinions. Let's say I was about to buy a car. I'm going to go to my Facebook and tell friends that I'm thinking of buying a Honda, let's say. And some of them will say, oh, they've had great success with that car. That's very nice. Good choice. Some will say they've had a problem with maybe the Honda. So who's influencing me? I'm a potential buyer of a Honda. And is it just the advertising of the company Honda that's going to make up my mind? No, my mind is being made up by my friends. That's social media. And whether it's Facebook or Instagram or any of the other social media, it's playing an increasing role in our influence. Influencers are not just celebrities who might use a product that I'm getting interested in, but it's people I talk to and who know me as well. Okay, and then what else happens? We have the social science view. We go from just an economics viewpoint, which is a great science and many good concepts in it, but we want to, in fact, even economics change from classical economics to behavioral economics. In other words, the economists are now recognizing that behavior is not completely rational. It is, as a matter of fact, be glad you're irrational. But irrational people are predictable. Isn't that interesting? Or do you maybe doubt that we can learn and measure their irrationality? Okay, and we go on, and we now have computer screens. In fact, the marketer today is on the screen most of the time. The marketing is going on, and he or she is watching how many products have been sold against the goal that has been set. And they can use the screen to change the price, to add a new attribute to the product, to promise a faster delivery. In other words, after the marketing plan has been prepared, life goes on and things change, and before the next planning year. And so you're using all the information that's flowing in, and you're putting out changes that deviate from the plan to hit your objectives. And along comes AI. And I'll say more about it because it is going to create a definite revolution. Let's move on. First of all, what's really changed is two things. Consumers have changed from what they used to be like, and companies have changed. Consumers today are walking with a computer in their pocket or their purse, and they will be in a store and see something they like that's priced at X, and they aren't sure they should pay for it at that store because they take out their computer and see what store Y would charge for the same product. They may find that they don't have to buy it from this store because it's 10% cheaper by buying it from the other store. Now, what they say to the clerk, I'll buy it from you, but not at your price, but at 10% less. And I'll show you on my cell phone that the competitor's charging less. So you have to train your clerks to have that experience and to know what to do. Do you want your clerk to lower the price because the computer showed a lower price or not? Okay, that's something you have to settle. So the consumers are very much on top of knowing, no consumer wants to choose a hotel without looking up what the guests of the hotel said about the service. Look at how smart you can be. You may find out that that hotel has a great name, but that particular location of that hotel does have a terrible reputation. Okay, now I said, turn to the next slide, please, that the companies are much smarter. They have so much information about customers now because they've been actually gathering data about the individual buyers and how they chose, how much they bought in the past. But it's gone so far now that big companies are buying information about target consumers. What do they read? What do they, where do they shop? How much time do they spend shopping? All these questions, so that there will be information available to the marketer to be sending a message at the right time to the right person at the right price, and so on. Now, what we call that is not mass marketing anymore. Mass marketing just said, buy a Coke, whoever you are. Was it segment marketing? Yes, we went through this stage. If you're in this segment, buy my product. Now we're in a new segment called one-to-one marketing. We have knowledge of individuals who are interested in our type of product, and we know a lot about them, and we can create, using email and other means, other media, to reach individuals at the right time. Now, many companies will be impressed with that possibility, but they won't be able to operate on it. Most companies will settle, hopefully, with segmented marketing, which isn't to know any of the individuals in the segment. It is to put out an appeal to that segment that is different and better than the appeal of any competitor to that segment. So, but I have to share with you that some companies are into one-to-one marketing. Okay. So companies and consumers are both much more sophisticated than the past. Next slide, please. And now what's happening is e-commerce. Do I have to go to a store to get the product? Can't I just look up the information about the product and order it and have it shipped to me? And if I don't like what it is, I'll send it back. In fact, maybe the store said it will be free when that they will pay for shipping it back if I'm not happy. So is that a big percent of your company's offerings? Well, today, still most sales are done in stores. But the part that is done by ordering goods from stores is growing faster. I mean, it's a smaller part, but it's growing faster than in-store sales. Let's imagine the possibility that no one goes to stores anymore. They only use e-commerce to order it for shipment. You know, that might mean if you heavily invested in your stores, let's say in furniture stores, or in dress shops and so on, you may find no one coming in. You know, we talk about shopping centers. Many shopping centers have closed down. There are several shops in the shopping center, but maybe half of them are empty. No one's coming to buy anymore. Now, this poses a new question. If you do have a store and you're paying rent and all that, you better make that store interesting to go to. And have you done that? I find in the shopping center, most of the stores I could enter are boring. The people are boring in the store, the clerks. There's no color in the store. There's no music in the store. It doesn't even smell that good to be in the store. So if we're going to start losing stores because people can get everything they want without going to a store, then your stores must be made more interesting. Your grocery store must be very appetizing, or else. Now, e-commerce is a wonderful thing. It gives us time not to shop, or to shop more efficiently. Let's go to the next slide, please. I've introduced a number of concepts that you may want to know a little bit more about. I use the term atmospherics. Again, in connection with stores, does the store have a good atmosphere? Is it pleasant and colorful, and there's music playing? Do you have a good atmosphere? Now, I use the term societal marketing to evaluate its investigations about whether something done in society, done in marketing in society, is helping people or hurting people. For example, let's look at cigarette smoking. We might say it's good that people are free to smoke. Yes, that freedom could be important. But you know, a lot of people who smoke are fearful of smoking. They want to stop, but they can't. So the question is, can we help them? Can we use marketing techniques, persuasive techniques, to help them smoke less? And yes, we've been doing that. And that is social marketing. There's about 3,000 people in the world now who are skilled social marketers. They get people to stop self-destruction. They help people stop being alcoholics. They help people stop being hard dope users. In other words, they help people move to healthier behaviors. And the book Social Marketing has gone through the 7th edition now, and tells all kinds of stories on how marketing has helped people live a better life. Now, what about demarketing? Demarketing actually is very interesting. Do you know we have water shortages around the world? If you're in the United States near the Colorado River, which feeds all the crops that are being grown agriculturally from California and so many states, there's a big campaign to get people to use less water. It's called a demarketing. In other words, instead of trying to get people to increase their purchase and use of water, you're going to get them to decrease their use. So I think in the future, we're going to see a growth in the number of demarketing campaigns to save our resources, partly because we are over polluting. So we're going to have demarketing campaigns to change our behaviors from wastefulness that is producing bad environmental effects. Okay. And I recently did some work on a book called Regenerative Marketing. I've noticed many towns and cities which are dying. They lost an industry. Let's say it's a small town, and let's say it had a big maker of a good prune juice company, and the prune juice company failed. Now, many jobs were lost. That town has to figure out, can we attract another industry? Can we continue to flourish? So regenerative marketing is what you turn to when you see that you need a system for revitalizing a place. We started our thinking with the city of Palermo in Sicily, which has great treasures in it from the time that the Greeks and Romans occupied Palermo and Sicily. So it does attract tourists who want to see Palermo, but Palermo has a lot of problems now. And we've been working on those problems to regenerate the sense that this city has to do better and better. All right, go to the next slide, please. This is one of my books on marketing, and I want to just mention, in it you will find a good discussion of AI, for example. Now, by AI, I want to distinguish between the use of artificial intelligence just to make your processes work better. For example, let's say marketers spend a lot of time with clerical activities. I mean, if you have the names of a lot of customers, you have files of information about what they watch and how often they shop and all that. You want to get that information easily accessible. You don't want to go to a file cabinet, pull out the drawer and look up consumer X for information. You want it to be fingertip information. Well, AI is going to let you make all the information you have available right on your computer, just clicking the right button. Okay. But then there's a form of AI that is special, and that's called Chat GPT. And that form says you can make a statement that you want the computer to type out something about the life of some person, and you want a 5-page description of that person's life. Let's say T.S. Eliot. My prompt, this is called your prompt. You put some prompt, type a 5-page story of T.S. Eliot and emphasize the books and poems that he has written, period. And all of a sudden your computer starts doing that, and in about 5 minutes you have that essay. And it's well written, by the way. Or you might have done a different prompt. I want a print ad. And I'm a shoemaker, so I want the shoes to be blue and red, and I want them flying in the air with wings. And you go on and describe a print ad. And sure enough, in no time, you'll see the first sample. You might not like it, you might want to improve it, but you started very quickly with something. Today, it's gone further. Today, you just say, I want a whole advertising campaign I want the 30-second commercial. And here's what I want in the 30-second commercial. Sure enough, it will generate the ad. Now, a lot of people have seen some of these ads and they've said, oh, sometimes they're very awful. Occasionally, it's quite interesting as a starting point ad. So the idea that you can have a machine develop an ad of 30 seconds is fantastically new and threatening to the advertising industry. Why do you think two of the largest world's advertising firms have just merged? Because they don't need that many people. Okay, but let me tell you what else is happening. Today, you can ask to speak to Claude in San Francisco. Claude is not a real person. Claude is the name of a chatbot. And you can say to Claude, Claude, I need your advice on something. And you just give your question to Claude, and Claude will talk to you, because Claude will be using AI's chatbot idea. And as a matter of fact, instead of Claude, you might find your therapist. You want a therapist for a specific problem you have, and there could be a chatbot which embodies that therapist. And you can talk to a machine, basically, that asks very good, not only questions, but response to your own. You're having a conversation with a machine, not a person. Let me go further. Today, many young men in the United States now prefer a girlfriend who's not real. Maybe they want a real girlfriend, but they're happy with Hilda or what Janet, and these are chatbots, and you end up with someone who likes you very much, is happy to hear about your problems, to make suggestions about your problems, a real companion, and it's all artificial. Well, okay, we can speculate on that later. But anyways, that's AI. All right, marketing automation. Many of our processes will be automated. Persona marketing means simply we can't do any copywriting unless we know who's going to read our message. Is it a 35-year-old woman who is highly educated? Because then you better use a highly educated set of words for her. Or is it a woman who didn't have much education? Then you have to make your language simpler. So you have to have models for the type of person you're trying to send a message to. That's persona marketing. And influencer marketing. How do you find people who have a lot of influence and to get them to talk favorably about your product? Boy, can you get Taylor Smith, who goes around the world with huge audiences, to show your purse, if you're a purse manufacturer, and she bought it or you gave it to her, and all she says by chance, oh, my purse, I love it, period. And that's Taylor Smith. I want what she has. Okay. And we have to map our customers, and how do they get to visit us? What do they go through? And I want to say more about that. That's very important. So let me move to the next slide. Here's the system. It's a system called the 5 A's. It's the stages which a customer moves through from the beginning to the end. They start unaware, and then they get to hear about you. So how do you get them to hear about you? You're going to get information about prospects, and you're going to advertise. Advertising is very effective to produce awareness, and even effective to produce appeal, because it not only mentions the brand, but it says what's special about it. So you use advertising for these first 2 stages, but at some point, the prospect will have some questions. Good, it's an interesting product, but I wonder how long will it last? And where can I go to find it and all that? So you, again, add to the task of advertising to anticipate the questions that will have come up. So the advertising has answers to those questions as well. But to get the person to actually buy, you're going to move from just advertising to really an attractive price. You're going to use price incentives to get them to actually buy for the first time. That's called acting. And then if they're satisfied, you hope they come back and buy again and again, and maybe become what we call one of your fans, one of your advocates. So that's the 5-stage process. And what this diagram shows, that you have to address each of these 5A stages with different tools, advertising at the beginning, and maybe sales force later on, and better distribution later on, and so on. Okay, let's move on. I use this diagram because it shows the 5A's, as you see, once again, the 5A's. But now I've built a marketing plan around the 5A's. And it starts, just go to the far left at the bottom and read what you're seeing. Maybe I set out a billboard about my new product to get some awareness in the city about my product. And then I did this other thing. Every dot is a touch point in the journey. In other words, I've actually created a journey that consumers who we are targeting and trying to make them into our customers will go through. And notice these touch points are important. We need to understand how we can touch the consumer's interest. Now, by the way, if you don't do your touch points, those dots, well, if the competitor is present at the same touch point, in other words, you put out an ad and they put out an ad, and their ad is better than yours, then you're failing at that touch point, and they're going to move on and find out more about the competitor's product than yours. In other words, a badly done position at a touch point drops you from the competition. So you've got to decide what parts of the journey of touch points are you present in, and are you present in a superior way? Okay, let's move on to the next slide. And I just published a book called Transformative Marketing. For those of you who are more mathematically inclined, you know that marketing is changing, not only AI, but new things are happening. And in the book, my colleague and I do separate chapters on the following ideas. A whole chapter on using AI for your general processes. 2, a separate chapter on generative AI, what I call Chat GPT, to create, a new image, to create a new ad, and so on. A 3rd chapter on machine learning. How do you collect a lot of data about potential customers and learn and get insight into their behavior? How do you use the machine learning to draw insights about customers? And there's a whole chapter on IoT, how we're going to use more internet sense. We have a lot of chips, and chips can help. For example, those of you who might enter a building which is dark, and suddenly the light goes on. Well, you planted a chip that if the door is open by someone, the light will go on. So the world of chips is now being populated by by chips that will get jobs done without us thinking about it. That's the IoT world. Okay. And then we have a whole chapter on the metaverse. There are some companies who have created artificial realities where people can go and socialize. In fact, you don't even know who they are. They are real people, but they have a costume, and they're socializing, and they meet other people, and they talk about things, and maybe they also do some buying and selling of things on a virtual world. And maybe you can use a metaverse to try out a new product on this population and see how much sells. And so some metaverses are test markets, basically. But I won't say much more. You have to read the literature on that. And then we want to talk about blockchain. There's a whole chapter on that's an accounting method where you can register exactly when a transaction took place without any dispute. And then we talked in a whole chapter about drones coming into more importance in marketing. For example, let's say you're a hospital and you're doing surgery and you ran out of one of the things during the surgery that you need. And one of your assistants puts in a phone call to the company that makes what you're missing. And the company says, we'll drone it over to you you have a rooftop. A drone will come on your rooftop with the missing chemical that you need to complete the surgery. Well, drones could play a bigger and bigger role in delivering scarce goods. And then we end up with a full chapter on robots. And believe it or not, there are robots and robotic procedures making marketing work faster and better. Okay, read the book to just be literate in these new techniques. Next slide, please. Marketing is facing a new crisis, which we hadn't thought about, namely that all of our human activity and driving cars and flying airplanes is creating carbon. And carbon is heating the planet to the extent that parts of Africa, parts near the equator are going to get so hot to be unlivable in. And the people living in those parts are going to flee. And they're going to try to get into Europe. They're going to try to get into Australia, into Canada or the United States. And can we contain the heat? Can we reduce the amount of carbon we're generating? And what will absorb the carbon? Well, a forest, as long as we have good forests and trees, they will absorb some of the carbon. The ocean, unfortunately, is absorbing some carbon and killing a lot of the water plants. So the question is, we can't settle for just profitability. We must balance profitability with sustainability if we want a healthy earth. And I'll say more about that. Let's move on. This is just a slide to say there's three ways to think of marketing. One is very much the old-fashioned way. The second one is more wise. It's done with data and so on. The third is almost a spiritual way of marketing. You'll have to read that. I won't take the time because we're running out of time. But the next slide, please. This one, of course, I'm going to just tell you about. It's a useful slide and try to get the copy of it. Marketing has really passed through a lot of stages. Stage 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4. Do you know how this came about? You cannot revise a 600-page textbook every year. And yet a lot of marketing and new marketing happens each year. Companies have new experiences. So could we, every year or two, write a shortened version. And that's what we did. We wrote 1.0, then 2.0, 3.0. 1.0 was really just about selling. It was the old model. If you go down that column, it's the second column, it will just describe what standard marketing used to be about. And then you go down the next column where we start really thinking about customers. Then another column where we start thinking about value. Then another column when we start integrating maybe AI later on. And another column when we become metaverse and immersive marketing. As you can get a group to sit down with this wonderful table to talk about each of those, and where do you stand? What are you missing out on? How much can your marketing be more effective if you move from a lower stage to maybe one of the latest stages and so on? And it's all spelled out. Next slide, please. Marketing in the next 30 years, a few predictions. I would say that marketing may end up using less advertising and less sales force over time. Now, the interesting thing is marketing was basically about advertising and having a sales force. But it turns out that there's so much social media now and so many ways in which people hear about products and so on, that you're not in as much control. You know, in the old days, people knew your ad. And nowadays, there's so many advertisements. And then salesmen, here's what's happening there. Of course, when the product is very complicated, you almost need a visit from a salesperson. But look what happens in a pharmaceutical company. A pharmaceutical company hires some very attractive and well-trained young people to make visits to doctors. So they're, in a sense, the salesperson. And Mr. Doctor, we have a brand new drug, and here's how it works. The only thing is, this person will find out they can't see the doctor. The doctor's too busy to see. In fact, the nurse says, you can't see the doctor, but leave your product, leave its description, and leave a sample. And he'll look at it. And if he had any questions, he'll get back to you, period. So what is the sales force doing? Just dropping off a sample in a brochure. So is it good enough? Well, maybe not, because in the old days, we used to say the salesman should take the doctor to a good restaurant for lunch. Maybe give a trip on a sailboat to a set of doctors to influence them. Now there's regulatory laws which prevent pharmaceutical companies from entertaining the doctor to get him bent toward their product. Okay, so Salesforce, I've often heard this question. I don't want to get a salesman to come and try to influence me because I know so much about the product. It's all there on the internet. The competitors are there, and so sales force may be less effective in a world full of information on the internet. Okay, so how do you win then? When you have a product which owns good shelf space, like Campbell's soup is always in the store. Kellogg's cereals, always in the store. You own shelf space. You have a quality image, and you're one of the big three, and you keep going with branding. You have even a team called brand management that is strengthening the brand all the time. And you're pricing right. you know what's happening and where you have to price down and when you have to price up. And those are still the ingredients of staying well and alive as a company. And much more AI, much more robotization of marketing will occur, much more machine learning. And I wanted to make sure you recognize that the old marketing still works very well, but it's now down to not just segment marketing, but one-to-one marketing ultimately. Let's go to the last slide. And it's one I use a lot because I want to say this: within 5 years, if you're in the same business that you are in now without any change in the business, you're going to be out of business. You know, it's very interesting. What are the oldest companies in the world? There are very few of them because most companies end after a point. Japan has two of the oldest companies in the world, one that makes their buildings for solemn worship, and I forget the second one, but like they were founded in 500 AD, 500 AD. But you want to survive and be profitable for a long time, and yet you have to innovate, because if you don't innovate and make newer versions and follow changes, you'll die anyways. In fact, it turns out that Peter Drucker, the father of management, taught us the following: that the two most important functions of a company are what? One is marketing, and the second is innovation. And those two are necessary: good marketing and successful innovation. And by the way, as you make your profits, make sure you're making them with good sustainability, no waste, much reuse of resources, and then you're going to be a great success. Thank you very much for listening to me. And I know if there are questions, I might have some answers for you as well. Thank you very much.